Hey, good morning, everyone. This is State Building Co-Council Executive Committee for Monday, September 22nd, 2025. We'll try for roll, please.
Todd Byrither,
Here.
Jay Arnold, Tom Young,
Here.
Roger Haringa,
Here.
Tom Handy. We do have a quorum with the three of you.
Okay, we'll get a little bit more into why we're here, but let's go to any introductions from the public if desired.
Tim Atterbury, Associated General Contractors of Washington.
Welcome, Tim. Patrick?
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington.
Morning, Patrick. I see Chell's hand.
Yeah, this is Charlie Anderson. I'm a council member, but not part of the executive committee.
Thank you.
Just let the record show Jay Arnold's with us at the moment.
Okay, I see that too. Okay, I see some other names popping in, so we'll keep moving. Review and approve the agenda. Can we hear a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Roger.
Okay, I say Roger, and I think Jay was second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. Okay, we'll jump right into the code cycle update. Dustin and I and a few others have coordinated this for this week. Thank you for joining this special meeting. We are trying to tee everything up for the council on our special meeting of the full council on Friday, the 26th. High level, we've been monitoring. We're here to discuss the schedule and whether and how we can advise the council to make a decision on Friday if we need to adjust it. Just high level for everyone here, all the technical advisory groups have finished most of their work. I would say, we're coming into this what it was anticipated as October 1st CR 102 submittal, so that we could adopt by December 1st. So we have most of the technical work done, and we need to discuss today on the administrative side how to address some of the challenges. So really, this is up for the executive committee to talk through. We'll take public comment on it, but we want to talk through scenarios first without presupposing what the anticipated result is. I'm going to ask Dustin to give us a little update on the administrative side, please.
So on, like Todd said, we got most of the technical work done. Most of the proposals have been moved towards CR 102, and what that means is staff needs to draft our rulemaking documents where we show changes in the Washington Administrative Code. We need to draft our CR 102 forms, which go hand in hand with the document we do with the rule drafting service to show the changes in WAC. And then along with those for CR 102, we have to draft a small business economic impact statement and a preliminary cost benefit analysis. Staff's been burning the oil trying to get these done in time. And we've encountered some hardships with volume being the probably primary hardship. Second, we've had some turnover time going back and forth between the code revisor's office, and that's their normal operating procedure, is it takes time for them to do some of the stuff that we do to reduce our filing times. So if we file stuff that we just draft ourselves, we have to file even sooner than what we've been aiming for. So we work with the rule drafting service to format appropriately for the state register our filings, and that lets us look at a one column of filing deadlines as we go through that one. And so we've got the challenge of volume and integrating with another agency to get these out there, and staff has not been able to get the filing documents for all the CR 102s in a ready state for the council to take a final look at this Friday. And so that compounds out to mean that we won't make our October 1 filing deadline for CR 102. And then that expands out to what options are available if it's even possible to hit the December 1 filing deadline or final adoption deadline, or what the options moving out beyond that look like. And so I guess the short story to sum it all up is that the CR 102 filing documents are not ready to go, and we have to make a decision on what the roadmap looks like moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And a couple things you heard in there, and many of you know, I mean, there are multiple statutory requirements as we go through this process. So obviously this is a complex 3-year process, and it's a pretty wicked problem. And so like any project, if we call it that, we're managing it, and we've consistently said as the council, we want to make sure, first and foremost, that technically we are bringing the codes up to an acceptable level. And it's my opinion that we are on track with that, and no one's taken their foot off the gas on finishing off our remaining technical processes, including the single exit, the multiplex, and a couple other legislative mandate that we've planned coming into December, January. So really the question we need to discuss today and bring forward to the council on Friday is administratively what happens when we now are pinched on a couple of these statutory requirements. I'll say right up front, there's some very important ones that no one, in my opinion, on the council is backing down from: cost benefit analysis, small business impact, and economic impact. We have to get those things right. Again, giving my opinion, but then a couple of the other ones that we can get into a little more and discuss are this December 1st deadline. What happens if you don't make it? The second one with the legislature is a requirement in that same section that it shall sit then the following year through the legislative session. So technically it implies that you can't implement before sine die of the session following that December 1st adoption deadline. And then the other one that is tricky is there's a new requirement in the 2024 bill that says 30 months after the ICC has adopted, has published their codes. And so it's not something we have a lot of control of when they publish their codes. So we can get into it if you want. There's a couple codes that Dustin's ready to present to you that we're nearing that. So we're going to pinch from two ends on a couple of the codes. So we just got to navigate it and discuss our recommendations to the council. So with that, I'll take a breath. Any council members want to make any comments or ask any kind of preliminary questions? Representative Randall, welcome.
Thanks. Just questions at this point from me. Is it likely that a later date in December, end of the year, January 1, second week of January, do we have a sense of what is a plausible completion date for this project? Like how far behind schedule, or is it far enough behind schedule that we just don't know?
So on that one, the energy codes are bringing a little bit of an additional challenge as compared to the remainder of the codes. We have also in our statute a requirement to do a third-party analysis to assist us in filing our documents in compliance with the APA, specifically 34.05.328, which is speaking more to our cost-benefit analysis. And then also that same contract is supposed to inform the 3-year report to the legislature showing the energy efficiency increases as we move towards the end of our 2030 window to improve that 70%. That contract went out to bid once the proposals were in a ready state to go to CR 102. to try to keep on track with a December 1 final adoption date. The work for that contract was condensed into a very short time frame. Bidders came to a pre-bid meeting. We had good turnout at that, but then the bidders that actually submitted bids, there was only one, and it was a non-responsive bid that was for the residential energy code only. And so the feedback we got was that the time was the primary factor there, that if they had more time, they could probably get that work done. And then there's also not a huge amount of money available for that. So we've got a budgeted $200,000 for that contract. So the energy code, getting the contract out there and getting the results of some of that contract work to inform final adoption will take a little bit of additional time. And so that's part of the discussion we're having here today, is how we can allow for that contract to run. And get that information. The other codes, if we're looking at all of them kind of holistically, or not holistically, but if we look at the plumbing code and the mechanical code, we are significantly closer to having those documents ready to go right now. They are in about a 75% total ready completeness, and we could probably, in one of my proposals to make this work as close as possible with our statutes, I would be prepared to bring the mechanical code and plumbing code to a final adoption date towards the end of December. The building code, existing building code, residential code, and fire code are not anywhere near that close. I've got the building code in about an 80% draft format right now. And I think that I could bring the building code and the fire code in February, and then residential code in April is what I'm looking at. And this is chunking it out to align as close as possible with the 30-month statute that's in there now. I think that we could potentially target a February final adoption for everything outside of the energy codes, and be mostly in alignment with the 30 months after the publication dates of all the codes. But so what we've been talking about is how much division do we want in the final adoption dates as we move forward. I chunking it out so that we do mechanical code and plumbing code in December, building code and fire code in February, the residential code in April, and the energy code in June for final adoption. I think can work, allow also the contracts to run out there. And I think that gets us down the road. But if we want to target all of the codes outside of energy codes towards the April or March timeframe, I think it's possible, but it'll keep us on that high pressure sleigh ride towards getting it done. And then I am hesitant to offer that as a for sure thing that staff can do, just to make sure that we're not shifting our goalposts anymore. Ideally, I would like this to be the last shift of that goalpost.
So am I hearing that right? That all of them could be done by June of next year?
I'm
So
confident
a
that
6-month delay?
yes, and that's just with the getting all for final adoption. And with all that, the proposed implementation date, instead of being November 1 of 2026, with the statutes as they are right this second, would be May 1 of 2027. So a 6-month delay at the end as well there.
Okay, and that's just to allow for one legislative session to pass?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then okay. I may have more questions, but I'll see if anybody else does.
Appreciate
And
it.
and I'll say thank you, Representative Rambo, because I think that's an important way we want to frame it today. What is technically possible? What is administratively possible? And then what is legislatively possible? Because we can talk about all three of those in context. So Representative Schmidt, please. Welcome.
Thank you. I think I'm off mute.
You're good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so actually you answered my question because Representative Rammel asked the question. I just wanted to understand the dates again in the sine die because I heard that in the beginning. But now I think so we'd have to go through a full session. So if everything's done by November 1, 2026, then they would go into effect May 1 of 2027, correct? That's what I just heard.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, perfect. Yeah, that was my question, that timing, and I think you cleared it up with Rammel, so I was just verifying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
So I think I have two questions. Like Representative Rommel, I'm trying to digest. So we have the December 1st requirement that's in the statute, and we have the 30-month requirement that's in the statute. If we are pushing out till June, are we now exceeding the 30-month?
Yes.
So
So where we're at with the 30 months, like right now, the UPC, the 30-month day was August 31st. So we've missed the 30-month right there. The next 30-month date that is relevant is the mechanical code. And since the fuel gas code is embedded within that WAC, I'm going with the most conservative date associated with all the codes that are in there. That's December 31st this year. The plumbing code is we already talked about that one, sorry. The building
That's-
code and fire codes have the next most restrictive dates in there. We've got the February 28th for the building codes.
That-
And go ahead, Roger.
That's fine, Dustin. I mean, there are details, and I understand they're varying. The ICC codes are published at different times, so the 30-month deadline for us varies. So we as a council are caught between RCWs and things that are outside of our control, like when the ICC codes are published. And I think we would need to, no matter what, we're going to be in violation of one or the other. It appears as though to me. So December 1st, that is RCW 1927-074 5C. The decisions to adopt or amend through your code year adoption cycle shall be made prior to December 1st. So I don't know what decisions, have we made a decision now? I mean, that's a question that I would ask, and maybe that's exactly what has to happen by December 1st in order for us to not be in conflict with that RCW. The RCW 1927-031, which I think is the new one, and I don't remember where it is in is the 30-month, and we're already in violation of that. So part of this is no matter what, we are going to be in violation of one or the other RCWs. And then so that's I guess comment number one or clarification, and I wanted everybody to understand that. The second part, Dustin, is originally there is this whole adoption, when it's adopted, when it takes effect question. Originally, well, in fact, it may be by state statute, or I don't remember what requires, but there is a July 1st date somewhere in the RCWs or the WACs. I don't remember exactly where it's at, that says we're supposed to do it by July 1st. We, as a council, pushed that out to November 1st of 2026 already. You had said we would talk to me with your current schedule of having everything done by June. What would hold us back from having an effective date of November 1st anyway?
The one RCW that says that these codes will be done and shall not go into effect before the legislative session of the next year. So if
Right.
we do final adoption in June, the current reading of the RCW puts the effective date
Right.
having to happen after that legislative session.
I'll also, yeah, but so Dustin, I'm suggesting that we are in conflict with some of the RCWs, and I'm reading the 1927-074 5C. It says all decisions to adopt or amend codes of statewide application through a 3-year code cycle shall be made. So my suggestion is to you is I would suggest that we have already made a decision to adopt rules. They aren't final, but the decision has been made. We have a list of rules that we have decided that we are going to make. It would sit through this legislative session. And we would, in my mind, theoretically be in conformance with 1927-074. It's the question becomes, at what state or how far along in the process do we have to have by December 1st? And really drilling down and defining that. And I would suggest we've made decisions, which is what the statute says. So again, question, comment, and I guess I'll let others speak. So.
Thank you, Roger. Representative Rammel.
Thanks. I was trying to find that statute because my recollection was that it was specific to just the energy code and maybe only the commercial energy code that had to sit through the legislative session, and only if we didn't get a 2/3 majority vote on the sort of final passage. Am I recalling that correctly?
That's a little different. So if you're looking for the one that says sit through the legislative session, it's 1927-074 number 5C, and I'm gonna pull it up on the screen for everybody.
Yeah, it's worth it to go through a
Okay.
couple of these because there are about 4 or 5 of them that can trigger here.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
so
it is all codes. All right, I see it.
there you go.
Thanks for that clarification.
No worries.
If I can ask another question, Mr. Chair.
Of course.
I mean, I just would like to sort of understand, I mean, it sort of seems like we're in a place where we're going to make some decisions that are either like not in conformance with the code or need some grace or need new legislation or something, right? And so like bigger question for me, when we're adopting new codes, there's like a lot of businesses out there that are making plans around like what kind of buildings are we going to be, are we going to be able to apply for a permit under the new code or the old code? And I would, I don't know if this is necessarily focused on this, but would really welcome feedback from folks in the industry on this question. Like, if we're going to be making decisions about delaying this in one way or another, what is the like least disruptive? And what is, would they prefer that we sort of batch them all together in June of next year and then wait, or would they prefer that we sort of get on with it and try and seek some legislative authority to implement, sort of following Roger's suggestion as soon as it's ready, or do we want to just wait the full extra year? What does it mean for us to have done all of this work and have a code cycle that at the tail end of it optimally only lasts for 2 years? So now people are like familiarizing themselves with this new code, but it's just lost 1/3 of its shelf life. Those are all questions that are sort of lingering in my mind. I don't have an answer on them. I can tell it's disruptive for industry. There's maybe no way around that, but of the options in front of us, what is the least disruptive for industry is probably a big question in my mind.
Yeah, I appreciate that question, and Jay, I'll give it to you, but I'll say that is something I think both Roger and I, as his hand up, would like to discuss, because the promise to the public is an implementation date. and enough time to prepare for that. And let's talk about then technically, administratively, and legislatively how we could get there. Jay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a couple of observations. In addition to kind of how you had put things, Todd, and saying we've got different categories of issues here, the biggest one that we're tackling right now is recognizing the administrative burden. So before we go to public comment, we have to file a CR 102, and that includes a lot of analysis, including the small business impact statement, and then the preliminary for the energy code, the preliminary cost basis analysis. And we're hearing from Dustin the concerns about getting those done. The piece that I would like to see as we're taking a look at this Friday is, when is it that the council is doing work to make sure that we are being expedient? Because for a lot of these things, my impression is we already have got things ready to go to public comment. We want to hear that public comment and take feedback before final, but it is a council decision on a number of things. That's the issue. It's being in a position where we can file the CR 102 and get things to public comment. So when we talk about this, I'd like to understand the council decision points. Secondly, to Representative Ramel's comments, would be helpful for me, maybe the other professionals in here know the cycles, but knowing not just the code cycle for the existing international codes when they were adopted, but what the anticipated schedule is for the upcoming ones, to make sure that we're looking at whatever decisions that we make in context with how this would impact the next cycle. Finally, Roger, to your points on the fact that we have several conflicting codes that in RCW that we're not able to particular meet. To some of your comments, I think that's probably something best discussed in executive session on how we interpret and prioritize things. And I don't know if staff is proposing an executive session as part of the meeting on Friday. Thanks.
I had not
Thank
been
you.
anticipating an executive session for Friday, but we can still entertain it, but I'll need to chat with Dirk on that one.
But I think it's a good point. That is why we're here today, the executive committee. Okay, Roger.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Representative Ramel, being in private industry and on the design side. So any project, the most important, the decision as to which code you're going to design under starts with the designers. By the time you get a permit and build it, that's way down the road. So first off, having codes where I am supposed to design a project that is under one code for the building code and a different one for the fire or mechanical or energy is a complete chaos on a number of levels. So I think splitting them as far as an adoption date is I would not recommend it. As far as at what point, so it is critical for us to know when the adoption date is. Right now, it's about a year from now, right? A year and a month or 2 months or something like that. We will start making the decisions on projects that we are starting in, depending on the size of the project. Even large projects, I would suggest to you that we're going to start making decisions January, February, March as to what code we're going to try to get in, whether we will try to get it in under the current codes or whether we would just start designing for the next code cycle. So I think the critical thing is that industry knows when the dates are. Shifting the dates out now is probably okay. But it is just important that I'm just going to say at least 6, if not 9 months ahead of time, you're clear that this is the date, and so that everybody can plan for it. And that should avoid the disruption that you talk about.
And just
So-
to clarify, Roger, when you speak of November 1st, that's the implementation date next year.
Yes.
The adoption rate is the council adopting it, and then, yep.
For us, everything is the implementation date. And when do we need to start designing for those specific codes?
Okay, thank you. Justin, your hand up.
Yeah, I think you addressed what I was going to say for the most part. But when I'm suggesting adopting on different dates, I would not be proposing separate implementation dates. It's just administratively to give staff time to do the work to get the draft documents ready and do a final adoption, but all have the implementation dates all married together. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and what we're seeing here is on the screen. That's the statute that says by legislative session. That implies to me implementation. That's the earliest you can implement the codes is the sine die of that legislative session. So just as a side note, we found that that's part of the 1985 or statute that formed the council. Is that correct? So this has been in place for 40 years.
Oh, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Joe. Well, and I raised that question just to ask the question to understand what was the legislative intent then, and has anything changed in the 40 years to discuss? Go ahead, Joe.
Thanks. Thanks, Todd. Just as a fact, we've delayed the codes each of the last 2 cycles. 2 cycles ago, we delayed it for COVID reasons. And the last one was for the Berkeley decision reasons to help with the code. Being in private industry, we design, 6 to 9 months before we submit for a permit. So that amount of certainty, I'll corroborate what Roger was saying. And there's analysis that happens even before that 6 to 9 months as people look at buying land, redeveloping it, or renovating a piece of property. So that certainty is critical. And I think 6 to 9 months is a good window for providing advance notice of that certainty. I don't think we've ever had split adoption dates for codes, and I don't recommend it. I will also say that's not recommended. It's just too confusing for absolutely everybody involved. And if we ever talked about it, I would get into all the reasons, but I don't think I need to. I'm also interested in lessons learned, as this is, coming late in the process, and how can we build a schedule that is more robust and can get us through in the next cycle, so that we're not doing all this towards the last minute. And then I'm also going to ask a question about, so the contract that you said for the energy codes, is that going to be sent out again?
That is the plan. Before we make any action on that, we are waiting for final decision by the council coming up this Friday. So depending on timeframes established at that point, but yes, the plan is to resend that out for bid with some updated timelines so that hopefully we get more responsive bidders.
Okay, and the critique you said, or the suggestion was that the time frame was too tight for a bunch of the bidders. Was the money too tight as well, or was it just the time frame?
I would say that, combination of both, yes. I'd say the bigger limiting factor was the time frame. And if, potentially if we had an unlimited budget to throw at it, maybe we could have got somebody to bite on that one within the short time frame. But the money is a factor as well. For the 2021 codes, it's my understanding that not every single proposal went to be evaluated by the contract. And so, I don't necessarily think that that's the best practice for us to move forward. We shouldn't, cherry prick the ones that have the most impact on our codes. I mean, that's a way to get a significant portion of what we have affecting our codes, but it doesn't really solve the issue of evaluating each proposal and each change in compliance with the Administrative Procedures Act or necessarily the Regulatory Fairness Act. And so, the Regulatory Fairness Act isn't specifically written into the contracting needs for DES to seek out on these energy codes, but that is a part of the process that I feel like we've improved this cycle a bit, but it's still got room to be improved as well further. So yeah, I think that the contract money is an issue as well. And, you know, ideally, I think it would be good for the council to bring some contracting analysis to the cost benefit analysis for the rest of the codes as well. But that's not the environment we find ourselves in right now. Is we have, you know, $200,000, and that's been budgeted since I stepped into the managing director role. That's been something that rolls over and is all we have allotted for doing the contract work. And so if we're butting up against our expenditure authority and need more to actually evaluate all the proposals, you know, I'm not sure how to actuate that, but I think, you know, we can strategize ways to improve our process, at least within the council, to, you know, cover that gap that's apparent there.
I guess if,
Yeah, just to clarify,
if that's a limit, then, and it's, you know, decreasing the number of bidders we're getting, is there a way that the council can increase that amount by some reasonable thing that would allow, you know, more bidders, so we'd have a more likely successful bid?
I would need to definitely reach out to the finance folks here at DES, but I don't think that we have the room right now with the budget that we have before us to increase that allowance.
Okay.
yeah, just a couple of things that we've heard here. It would obviously be valuable to have third-party analysis for all of our codes. We do our best with public process and so forth. This is a shall in statute, that this code shall have a third-party analysis by contracted out of DES. So with guidance by the council. So, okay, Representative Randall.
Thanks. Hopefully the normal rule of contracting applies. Fast, cheap, and good. You get to pick two. So if we can extend the timeline, we can still stay in budget. I was going to ask, you know, and this isn't maybe a today question, but like, let's keep our minds open to it. My curiosity is whether this is a unique situation because of circumstances this year, or, you know, we put timelines in the budget, or into the statute rather, and we've, you know, we thought we were doing something that was achievable when we updated that a couple of years ago. If we need to update that further because we're going to hit this same problem every 3 years, let's think about that and try and, you know, we can either try and fix it for this year, or we can try and fix it going forward. And if it's a problem that we're going to encounter every 3 years, I'd rather fix it going forward.
And I would say that,
Go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say that with the current process, if we just keep on going down the road with the current machine, I believe that yes, we will encounter this issue every cycle, especially with the momentum to try to improve the cost benefit analysis and small business economic impact stuff. Some additional time needs to be set aside to allow for that. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to fall outside of a 3-year cadence, but some of the delays that we experienced are outside of, you know, even SBCC control. Right now, the model codes are advertising that the new ones will be available December 31st of 2026, allowing us to start in 2027. But, you know, the last code cycle, those dates were not, you know, upheld by the model code organization. So we had a 6-month delay on one of the codes, but not all the codes. And, you know, so we can work with the model codes and try to get some drafts out. I'm hesitant to work on drafts for our state codes, but we could get some mileage down the road and make the modifications that come out as a result of final publications down the road. But, you know, as I look through this one, it seems to be that the drafting of our existing amendments and significant changes reports seem to be the main holdup, and that's an administrative task that's for the Group 2 codes this cycle was taken on by staff. For the Group 1 codes, we tried to farm that out to the technical advisory groups, And some feedback we got on that was that the time ask for the group 1 technical advisory groups was a little bit high. And then some feedback I got on the group 2 was that, you know, the tags appreciated the staff work to get that to the point where they could take it and just take the information and digest it. But the time frame at which those were ready and then we were trying to make final decisions was also short. So it was the opposite direction on feedback for the group 2 codes. I see it as needing to get those done. You know, the model code organizations do produce a significant changes report document, but that typically isn't published until, you know, 6-7 months down the road after the initial publication dates. You know, if we could rely on something like that to inform our significant changes report, it would reduce staff exposure to that time, but that puts us, you know, that much farther down the timeline. So preloading as much as possible, the report drafting is where I see we can get some time back into our schedule. But if we can't start right at the beginning of 2027, or ideally, you know, 6 months before 2027, where we're letting things kind of sit and the publications are happening, that's kind of like our rebuild part of our cycle. So far in the schedules I've seen, we really addressed the intake of proposals and the modifications to the code, but the 3rd year is really kind of silent in the schedules that I've seen. And so the 3rd year is right now is visualized, or the after final adoption is visualized towards getting the publications out there to the model code organizations to publish so that folks can start getting that information. So I had that visualized as a 6-month process to get the proofs ready and have any back and forth between the model code organizations occur ideally between January and April. And then what I was notified from the model code organizations, they need about 2 months of final documents to get to publication. So get finals all done by April, have the publications done by July, and then we would be in a position to let the industry and enforcement agencies get ready to implement those codes in November. And I'd like to still keep on that timeline of, you know, trying to get the publications out as soon as possible so that ideally we'd probably have publication if we need to push out and have implementation date after legislative session of 2027. Get the publications out ideally in sometime of August or September, and then they have that time to handle those codes and get ready for implementation date in May of 27. If we wanted to try to get it done by November of 26 for implementation still, I still think that we could get the publications out pretty early in the year. We wouldn't necessarily get 6 months of time to work with the codes and become familiar with them, but we'd still have some training time out there. And really that's where the July 1st to the November 1st switch is that's the spirit of that change, is to allow folks time to become familiar before implementation. So I think we could do it, but it's a tough one.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Anything else, Representative Ramos? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our potential recommendation, and then we can bring in some public comment. So any council members like to start what we'd like to propose here? One is Jay, the potential to have executive session. So I think that's a consideration we can have, but let's discuss a couple pathways. The one that I'll just give my opinion. I think I favor keeping as much of it together as we can on the building codes. If it means that we need to stagger the energy code, CR 102 and adoption, I think that is a possibility. Knowing that if we bundle all of the rest of the building codes together, we are obviously going to miss 1 or 2 of the 30-month requirements. So that said, I agree with Roger and Shell. I would like to see us hit the implementation date in November. That's going to take some stakeholder feedback to make sure it is true that There's enough time for preparation, publication, education, training, so forth. That's the major concern with making a statement like that. But also, it appears to me that would take legislative help to allow us to do that. So, yeah, worst case, if we went down that path, kept our foot on the gas, it would have to sit through session and be eligible for implementation at signing down. So, I'll stop there for any reactions from the council members first. Or alternatives. Yeah, I'm not seeing any hands. Is anyone trying? There we go. Tom, good to see you.
Yeah, it seems to me that, if it didn't have to sit through session, I'm not sure exactly why that was put up initially unless they decide, thought that the council might come up with something that they needed to legislate against or improve, that might be the simplest option, and that would allow the implementation date to remain November 1st, correct?
Correct.
That'd be the concept. Is that achievable technically, administratively, and then that third big question legislatively? So with that, I'll hand it to Representative Ram.
Yeah, no pressure. With the usual caveats that I can predict the behavior of a few of us, but not all of us. That seems like a reasonable ask and a reasonable response. I think the question will come up. Is this a problem that's going to happen frequently, and do we need to address this one time, or should we think more holistically about fixing the schedule so that we don't have to deal with this again? We don't have to write the bill today to make a recommendation to this effect, but that seems like a reasonable thing for us to contemplate. One question I would want to have the answer to in my back pocket before we got too far down the road on this. Todd, you said this requirement has been in place for 40 years. How many times has the legislature ever stepped in and used it? We've been giving this, months of deference to the legislature to take action every time. So I didn't know what I said. 13 times we've been through this in that period. Has the legislature ever stepped in and used that? I don't believe we've ever done so while I've been here. So it'd be worth just knowing, like, are we having an argument about protecting a tool that nobody ever uses? That would definitely make it stronger. So I'm open to help and support, get something to get us through this, get it across the finish line. Lots of conversation to be had about exactly what shape that looks like and what kind of a strategy we would take. Just flagging, it's a short session. It's always harder to do things in a shorter session. Check.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And Krista, I saw your hand go up. You're probably our best historian, if I may present you that way.
Yeah, in my recollection, it has been used once.
Do you have a characterization when that happened?
That was probably back in 94, 95, I think, for log homes.
Thank you for that, Krista. I'm curious if the WUI code falls in that category, but thank you for the other reference. Okay, Jay, please.
Thanks. A couple of notes on potentially an ask of the legislature. The chair and I and members of the legislative committee have been asked to participate in our work group of the House Local Government Committee. We had previously and reported about this at SBCC meeting. we've been asked to come back on October 15th. So part of the actions that we should look at on Friday, if the will of the full council is to explore a legislative fix, is to authorize the legislative committee to begin discussions about that, and we can bring it up on the 15th. Thank you.
That's a good suggestion. Thank you. Jill, and then Tom.
Oh, I was going to ask the same question as Representative Rammel about how and when it had been used. So we'll take my hand out.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Tom, Chair of the Legislative Committee.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a good idea to start talking about this and formulating some questions. But this, I got a question for Dustin. If you had more budget authority and more staff, would these problems tend to go away? Or is the timeline for getting some of this contract work just too short to actually complete it? Or what? You know, I mean, it's probably not a good idea to ask you guys to all work 60, 70-hour weeks, you know, throughout these code revision cycles. And I can't imagine that there aren't some of those weeks for you guys. Where having additional competent staff could perhaps lessen your workloads, you know. So I'm just curious if maybe part of this legislative ask might be for, you know, for some budget in order to hire more people.
The answer is yes. You know, more people would always ease the situation we find ourselves in. You know, thinking about the contract and how that interplays, my thinking is that the energy codes shouldn't occur necessarily on separate years, but should kind of be looked at holistically. And then the second year of our code cycle maybe be dedicated to the contract analysis there and bringing that in with time for the council to analyze that at the end. But, you know, I've been trying to look at the 2027 cycle schedule, and but the timeline is a major part of the contract delay affecting us at the timeline for for the codes and the final adoption dates. The timeline's a big part of it. Staff can help ease it, but it may not be the one shot fix for the issue we're facing. I think that definitely some process improvements need to occur. And additional staff would help.
So with that, then it's just the amount of additional work that has time constraints and maybe the complexity of some of the codes and the analysis that has to take place in the whole process is getting to be the issue.
I mean, yeah, we're in 2018, the State Building Code Council was written into the Administrative Procedures Act, and it seems like since then the process has been new for the council. I haven't had a chance to go back and really dive deep into the documents for the rulemaking in previous cycles, but some of the needs for the compliance with Administrative Procedure Act and Regulatory Fairness Act are still novel in the eyes of the council work, and we're trying to improve that process and make it a regularly occurring thing, not something that we're still trying to round out our wheel on.
I think part of that assessment, if we were to work with the legislature, is going to have to be that assessment of not only staff time and resources, but also council time and resources, because it absolutely has increased each cycle. And when I say council, I mean all of the volunteer hours, the tags and stakeholders and so forth. I think that we need to document that. So let's go with Shell first.
Thanks. I get a second part to the question, which is kind of in the, if the legislature would defer their review of the codes what I heard, I think Dustin say earlier was you could have the codes done and ready by November of 2026. Is that, I see nodding.
Yes.
Okay, so that could be one legislative fix. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. Thanks.
Okay, well, Greg, I see your hand up, so let's transition into also taking public comment. Welcome, Greg.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I do
Yes,
have
please.
I have a hard stop at noon, and I think we still have a quorum after that, but
I
so,
believe so, yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
So
Okay,
I had the question of if you ignored the energy code and just look at the other I codes, or I mean, I guess the UPC is not an I code, but regardless, would you still have the hard time hitting the date requirements ignoring the energy codes?
Yes, for if we're trying to do adoption by December 1, we would have to file not the end of this week, but the beginning or by Wednesday next week to do that. And the documents won't be ready by then.
Well, not necessarily for this code cycle, but I mean future code cycles. Is the
Oh.
timeline too tight for all the other model codes?
I think if everything lined up with the perfect, dealing of the hand, yes, I think the timeline would be good. But, anticipate, I don't want to anticipate the delays on the model code organization side. But if we experience those, then yes, we start pinching us at the end of these cycles.
And the only reason I was asking is just something worth considering would be the energy codes are the full text of the energy code occurs in the WAC, unlike all the other codes. And so if that causes additional pain and effort on SBCC, it may be worth considering switching to something where we adopt by reference and then we have state amendments if that makes it easier. But if you have the issue persist regardless with all the codes, then maybe there's a bigger issue.
Yeah. I've been giving consideration to the energy code and talking about how the amendments occur there. And the flow of information is essentially reversed. And you're right, the entire text is there in WAC. And I guess just the consideration is at some point, if we try to amend all the stuff that's in the WAC back towards the IECC, more than half of that code is amended. At least that's my understanding of it. And so at what point does, I hear you. I just, I want to figure out the energy code and make sure that it's working the best way. And if we need to transition all of our amendments back to being just IECC, I don't know if that's necessarily the fix that we're looking for, but ignore, like not taking into account the energy codes for everything else. I think that there's still some room for hardship should any sort of delays occur at the model code organization. My thinking is we have to have a playing field that's ready to go when we start our code cycle. And maybe even have some of those codes have been out in the public eye for a little bit of time before we're writing our existing amendments reports. It'll give folks a little bit more time to identify the issues that are going to be apparent for Washington in those model code documents. Whereas right now everybody's getting eyes on them at about the same time. There's those who are involved in the code adoption process, but for those who are just taking the codes as they're published and then starting with them, the timelines can become contracted and congested if those don't flow out at the right time.
Okay, good topic though, thank you. All right, keeping on the 2024 code cycle.
Could I maybe ask for a motion to extend?
Oh, we only put an hour?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that and then try to be efficient here.
So moved.
We better put a time on it.
15 minutes?
I think we better let's say 30 and then try to do 15.
I move that we extend this meeting for 30 minutes.
Second.
Okay, Jay, then Tom. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting's extended to 12:30. Okay, Patrick.
Thank you. Once again, Patrick Hanks with the Building Industry Association of Washington. We're fine with a 6-month delay. We would look for a delayed implementation date to match the adoption, so that we have time to prepare training materials and classes for builders and code users. Our preference would be for all residential effects to go into effect at the same time. I think there are also several changes that are somewhat linked across the different codes or references from one code to another. So trying to have staggered implementation dates would cause some headaches and problems there. Code changes are inherently disruptive, but what makes it worse is uncertainty of what the State Building Code Council will do and when they will do it, or if they will be able to actually accomplish their deadlines. So whatever delay you end up deciding on, I would, suggest ensuring that it provides the necessary time to get things done properly and accounting some room for things that don't go perfectly. I think we've seen in this past process, there's been lots of little things that add up of things not quite getting done on time. So, and in the past, when you've rescheduled, you've kind of assumed, well, if everything goes right, we can hit this date. In my experience, you sometimes need to plan time for things to go wrong as well. When it comes to lessons learned, I think that's an important topic. Now's probably not the time to go into detail about that, but I think it'd be important at some point for the council to discuss their adoption process with stakeholders and identify problems and solutions to improve future adoption cycles. And I really appreciate looking at the RCWs. I will point out that, the 30-month requirement does provide some flexibility in that if a code is published 6 months later than it was supposed to, the implementation date still goes out from that some point. So it's not like you get less time to work within that. You still have 30 months, and it's just to take action on adoption. So if there's a stagger in the codes coming out, you still have to adopt within that 30 months, but you can still have a unified implementation date. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Representative Ramo.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just letting you know, I'm gonna have to jump here. I can't wait the 15 or 30 minutes. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna miss the meeting on Friday, but please do mark me down as willing to help, especially on the legislative fixes needed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining today, and thank you for that input.
Yeah, happy to have a follow-up call separately to talk about details as needed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we don't need to take the whole 15 minutes. So if we're nearing, if the action today is really what we've already done, is the discussion and then the recommendation going forward to the council, and I'm not sure we need formal action on bringing that forward, right? We just need to summarize this and seek input. Now's our opportunity for all stakeholders on the call to bring that forward to the council if there's something that we need to know. Specifically, I think the ask would be on the potential for keeping an implementation date. Is that technically possible? We really need information on the education training side of it, and what is really possible if the legislature were to allow that to happen. Did I capture it well? Or did I miss anything?
I think you caught it, Todd. And I don't think we need any specific, recommendation other than to summarize what we've got discussed here for the council.
Okay. Anything else on this item? Thank you, everyone, for that discussion. Finishing off our agenda, we do have one more marked on the schedule. Is there anything else that we need to know? We talked a little bit about that, Justin.
So as far as stuff that we have going for this Friday, there's a couple things that I'd like to place on that agenda, which are, give me one moment to get back to the notes I had on that one. We have a emergency rule out there for A2L refrigerants. And that one's been refiled a couple times, and that one's effective for the 2021 the 2021 codes. we have a petition to update that emergency rule language to bring in some more current standards for A2L refrigerants on the 2021 codes. We have a separate petition coming for the 2024 codes on the same topic. And we've got asks to bring this to our agenda this Friday. We also have a proposal that needs some administrative action by the council to move it towards CR 102. It's the IBC Group 1 proposal number 114. This one was paired up with another proposal that covered the same topic. The tags moved both proposals forward, the BFRW moved it forward, and then the council bounced it back down to the BFRW to make a recommendation on which proposal goes to CR 102. They've made the recommendation, but the council hasn't made the final movement on that proposal. So it's just a formality to get that one official into the CR 102 documents. And then lastly is our 2024 schedule. I would propose that we bring the schedule discussion up first, address the emergency rule petitions, and then the CR 102 item last on that one.
Justin, are we gonna, I'll coordinate with Roger, are we gonna bring the BRFW recommendation for the emergency fire petition that was brought back down to BRFW before in the special council committee?
We definitely can. I have to review the notes on that one for
Okay.
sure.
I'll connect the offline. So.
Okay. But yeah, that would be another item we could bring back on this one. Yeah.
Perfect. Anything else we missed? Anyone? Okay. Go ahead,
Just a quick question, Dustin, for the meeting on Friday, will you have written down some of the dates you were talking about?
Yes,
today?
I'll bring a couple different options. I'll strategize with Todd to identify what filing dates and things look like throughout the 6 months going in, and try to track that back and provide some feedback so that we can have something visual to look at there.
Okay, thanks. As an architect, I love the visual things.
No problem.
Okay, I plan on being there, but as a backup, Jay's already offered. I'll be 12 hours difference, so just knowing something might go wrong. Okay. With that, any other business?
No, sir.
If not, thank you everyone. We are adjourned.